Message is for you. Let's dive in and discover the power of breaking our fears. Which leads us to number 5, which is break your fears by taking action. You see, fear is like a wall that stands between you and your dreams. It may seem tall and impenetrable, but I am here to tell you that it is not. Fear is just an illusion, a product of our minds. And the only way to break through it is by taking action. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Easier said than done. And I understand that. Taking action can be scary, especially when we are facing our fears. But let me ask you this, what is scarier? Facing your fears and taking action, or living a life filled with regret and what-ifs? The answer is clear. We must be willing to take action and face our fears head-on if we want to live a life of fulfillment and success. So, how do we take action and break our fears? The first step is to identify what it is that we fear. Is it failure, rejection, uncertainty? Once we know what our fear is, we can start to work on overcoming it. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand our fears, the more equipped we are to conquer them. The next step is to take small, consistent actions towards our goals. Many times, we let our fears paralyze us, and we end up doing nothing. But here's the thing. The longer we wait, the bigger our fears become. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan, take small steps every day towards your dreams. It can be as simple as making a phone call, sending an email, or doing some research. The key is to keep moving forward, no matter how small the steps may be. Another powerful way to break our fears is by changing our perspective. Instead of viewing fear as something negative, see it as an opportunity for growth. Every time we face our fears and take action, we become stronger and more resilient. We learn from our experiences, and we become better equipped to handle future challenges. So embrace your fears and use them as fuel to propel you towards your dreams. Furthermore, it is crucial to surround ourselves with the right people, the ones who support and encourage us, and who believe in our potential. The truth is, we become like the people we spend the most time with. So if we surround ourselves with people who are constantly holding us back or feeding our fears, it will be challenging to break through them. But when we have a strong support system, we feel more confident and motivated to take action and overcome our fears. Last but certainly not least, we must remember that fear is a natural part of the journey towards success. It is not something that we can eliminate completely, but we can learn to manage it and use it to our advantage. As the saying goes, feel the fear and do it anyway. The more we face our fears and take action, the more we realize that they were never as scary as we thought. And that is the beauty of taking action. It helps us to break through our fears and discover our true potential. Which leads us to number 4, which is break your fears by changing your perspective. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where you were afraid to do something? Maybe it was a new opportunity, a new job, or even a new relationship. And that fear held you back from taking action? I know I have, and I'm sure many of you can relate. But what if I told you that fear is just an illusion, that it's all in your mind? You see, fear is not something that is tangible. It's not something that you can touch or hold. It's simply a feeling that arises from our thoughts and beliefs. And that is where changing your perspective comes in. By shifting your thoughts and beliefs, you can change your perspective on fear and ultimately break it. Let me share with you a personal story. When I was just starting out in my career, I was terrified of public speaking. The thought of standing in front of a crowd and delivering a speech made my heart race and my palms sweat. But then I realized something. It wasn't the act of public speaking that scared me. It was the thoughts and beliefs I had about it. I believed that I was not a good speaker, that I would stumble over my words, and that people would judge me. And those beliefs were holding me back from reaching my full potential. But then I decided to change my perspective. Instead of focusing on my fears, I focused on the opportunity to share my knowledge and inspire others. I shifted my thoughts to positive ones, and I started to believe in myself. And you know what? It worked. Today, I am known as one of the best motivational speakers in the world. And it all started with changing my perspective on fear. So how can you do the same? How can you break your fears by changing your perspective? Well, here are 3 simple steps that you can start implementing today. Step 1, identify your fears. The first step to changing your perspective is to identify what you are afraid of. Take some time to reflect and write down your fears. This will help you understand where they are coming from and how they are holding you back. Step 2, challenge your thoughts and beliefs. Once you have identified your fears, it's time to challenge them. Ask yourself, are these thoughts and beliefs serving me? Are they true? Most of the time, you will realize that your fears are based on false assumptions and limiting beliefs. And by challenging them, you can start to change your perspective. Step 3, reframe your thoughts and beliefs. The final step is to reframe your thoughts and beliefs into more positive and empowering ones. For example, instead of saying, I am not good enough, say, I am capable and confident. By reframing your thoughts, you can change your perspective on fear and see it as an opportunity for growth and success. Now, I want to be clear. Changing your perspective is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. You will face new fears and challenges, but by consistently applying these steps, you can break through them and achieve your goals. Remember, fear is just an illusion. It's all in your mind. And by changing your perspective, you can break it and reach new heights of success. Which leads us to number 3, which is break your fears by facing your fears. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Facing our fears can be a daunting and uncomfortable task. It requires us to step out of our comfort zone and confront the very things that scare us. But let me tell you, my friends, that is exactly why it is so important. You see, fear is a natural and necessary emotion. It is what keeps us safe and protected from potential harm. However, when fear starts to control our lives and hold us back from reaching our full potential, that is when it becomes a problem. And the only way to break free from fear's grip is by facing it head on. Now, I'm not saying that it will be easy. In fact, facing our fears can be one of the most challenging things we will ever do. But I can assure you it will also be one of the most rewarding. So how exactly do we go about facing our fears? Well, let me share with you 3 simple steps that have helped me and countless others overcome our fears and achieve greatness. Step 1, identify your fears. The first step in facing our fears is to identify what exactly it is that we are afraid of. This may seem obvious, but oftentimes our fears are buried deep within our subconscious mind, making it difficult for us to pinpoint them. So take a moment to reflect and think about what truly scares you. Is it public speaking, rejection, failure? Whatever it may be, write it down and acknowledge it. Step 2, understand the root cause. Once you have identified your fears, it is important to understand where they stem from. Most of our fears are rooted in past experiences or beliefs that we have internalized. For example, if you have a fear of public speaking, it could be because of a negative experience you had in the past, or because you believe you are not a good speaker. By understanding the root cause of our fears, we can start to challenge and change those beliefs. Step 3, take action. The final and most crucial step in facing our fears is to take action. This is where the real breakthrough happens. It is not enough to simply acknowledge and understand our fears. We must actively work towards overcoming them. And the best way to do that is by taking small, consistent steps towards our fears. If you have a fear of public speaking, start by speaking in front of a small group of friends or family. If you have a fear of rejection, start by asking for something small and gradually work your way up. The key is to keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and facing your fears head on. Now, I want to make one thing clear. Overcoming our fears does not mean that we will never feel fear again. Fear will always be a part of our lives. But by facing our fears, we learn to control and manage it rather than letting it control us. And that, my friends, is the true meaning of breaking our fears. Which leads us to number 2, which is break your fears by understanding the root cause. You see, in order to overcome our fears, we must first understand where they come from. We must dig deep and uncover the root cause of our fears. So what exactly is the root cause of fear? It is our thoughts. Our thoughts have the power to control our actions and ultimately our lives. Think about it. When we are faced with a fear, what is the first thing that happens? Our mind starts racing with negative thoughts. We start to doubt ourselves, we start to question our abilities, and we start to believe that we are not capable of overcoming that fear. But here's the thing, our thoughts are not reality. They are merely a perception of reality. And the good news is, we have the power to change our thoughts. We have the power to control our minds and our thoughts. And once we understand this, we can start to break our fears. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy. It takes time and effort to retrain our minds to think positively, but it is absolutely worth it. So how do we do it? How do we break our fears? By understanding the root cause. The first step is to identify the fear. What is it that you are afraid of? Is it public speaking? Is it failure? Is it rejection? Whatever it may be, write it down. Write down the fear and be specific. Next, ask yourself, why am I afraid of this? What is the worst that could happen? And then ask yourself, is this fear rational? Is it based on facts or is it just a thought? Most often we will realize that our fears are not based on facts. They are just thoughts that we have created in our minds. And once we understand this, we can start to challenge those thoughts. The next step is to replace those negative thoughts with positive ones. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, replace it with, I am capable and I will succeed. Instead of thinking, I will fail, replace it with, I will learn and grow from this experience. It's important to remember that our thoughts are like seeds. The more we water them, the more they will grow. So, we must water our minds with positive thoughts in order to break our fears. Another powerful tool to break our fears is to visualize success. Close your eyes and imagine yourself conquering that fear. See yourself speaking confidently in front of a crowd. See yourself succeeding in your business. See yourself getting that promotion. The more we visualize success, the more we believe in ourselves and our abilities. And lastly, take action. Action cures fear. The longer we wait, the more our fears will grow. So take that first step, no matter how small it may be. And then take another step, and another, until you have conquered that fear. Remember, fear is not something that we can eliminate completely. It is a natural part of life. But what we can do is learn to control it. We can learn to break our fears by understanding the root cause and taking action. Which leads us to number 1, which is break your fears by identifying your fears. You see, fear is like a dark cloud that hovers over our minds, blocking out the light of our dreams and aspirations. It can manifest in various forms: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of change, fear of the unknown. But the common denominator is that they all hold us back from taking action and living our best lives. So the question is, how do we break our fears? The answer is simple: by identifying them. You cannot conquer something that you do not acknowledge. It is like trying to fight an invisible enemy. You need to shine a light on your fears, bring them out into the open, and face them head on. Now, I know it is not easy. Identifying our fears requires us to be brutally honest with ourselves. It means admitting our vulnerabilities and weaknesses. But let me tell you, my friends, there is strength in vulnerability. It takes courage to acknowledge our fears, and that is the first step towards breaking them. So, how do we identify our fears? The first step is to pay attention to our thoughts and emotions. Fear is often disguised as doubt, worry, or anxiety. When you catch yourself feeling doubtful, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? When you find yourself worrying about the future, ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? When you feel anxious about a situation, ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen? The answers to these questions will lead you to the root of your fears. And once you have identified them, the next step is to confront them. You see, fear feeds on avoidance. The more we avoid our fears, the bigger they become. But when we face them, we realize that they are not as scary as we thought. It is like shining a light on a shadow. It disappears. Confronting our fears also means challenging the limiting beliefs that accompany them. We often create stories in our minds about why we cannot do something because we are afraid. But these stories are not based on facts. They are based on fear. So it is essential to question these beliefs and replace them with empowering ones. Another way to identify our fears is by seeking feedback from others. Sometimes our fears are so deeply ingrained in us that we cannot see them ourselves. But those who know us well can point them out to us. So do not be afraid to ask for feedback from trusted friends, family members, or mentors. Their insights can help you uncover fears that you did not even know existed. Once you have identified your fears, the next step is to take action. Fear often paralyzes us because we do not know how to move forward. But the truth is, the only way to overcome fear is by taking action. It is by doing the very thing that scares us that we realize it was not as scary as we thought. And with each small step, our fears start to lose their grip on us. Now, I want to address a common misconception about fear. Many people believe that successful individuals do not experience fear. But let me tell you, that is far from the truth. Every successful person has fears, but the difference is that they do not let those fears hold them back. They have learned to identify and confront their fears, and that is what sets them apart. In fact, fear can be a powerful motivator. It can push us to take action, to work harder, and to strive for more. But it is essential to use fear as a motivator, not as a roadblock. And the only way to do that is by identifying it and using it to fuel our actions. So, my friends, I urge you to start identifying your fears today. Shine a light on them, confront them, and take action despite them. As you do so, you will realize that your fears were not as powerful as you thought. And with each fear you conquer, you will become stronger, more confident, and more resilient. So I challenge you all to be brave, to be vulnerable, and to confront your fears. Because on the other side of fear lies growth, success, and fulfillment. Thank you.